They like to do this in Knoxville about every 3 years. Jeremy Pruitt out at Tennessee, Phillip Fulmer as well. We got our Tennessee guy, Charlie Burris, who has joined us throughout the years, here to talk Vols and the coaching situation there and the situation that this university and football program finds itself in. Charlie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, as always. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Absolutely. Always like to get your take on this. It's always been a spirited one and a very knowledgeable and insightful one. So this program's had a difficult time replacing Phillip Fulmer, Dooley and Kiffin and Jones, and now Pruitt. And how much of this had to do with recruiting violations? How much of this had to do with losing?
It was definitely some of both. But the overriding thing was definitely these recruiting violations. So assessing the full situation, this is what I think happened. Just my theory. I don't think any violations come up if Tennessee is winning. I don't think they come up at all, because reportedly it was sort of a disgruntled employee sort of situation. It gets sent to the compliance office, and it seems like kind of had a panic moment on November 13th. If you watch the press conference today with Tennessee's chancellor, she said that was the day. And by November 19th, Tennessee had hired a set of lawyers to conduct this investigation. And you don't do that if you don't have something serious going on, in my opinion. But like I said, if they're winning, I don't think that anything like this comes down the pipe. Let's be realistic. I saw somebody on Twitter say, what do you think happens in this situation? What do you think comes of this investigation if Tennessee went 7-3 this year instead of 3-7? And someone replied and said, commitments from 5-star players. That's what comes of it. And so I think that's exactly right. This doesn't come up if things are going better in the program. Obviously, that's speculation on my part, but I think that's probably true. But it did come down. It is what it is. And I think that the administrators at Tennessee looked, and I don't think there's kind of been this narrative that they're stabbing Pruitt in the back, or that this was some kind of 4D chess move, that they saw they could bring his buyout down and that's what they wanted. I don't think that was the case. I think they saw these violations and they went, oh, okay, this guy's doing some serious stuff. These people that handed it down have the receipts. We might just have to do this no matter what at the end of the day. I think they almost got forced in some sense to fire Pruitt. It appears, obviously we'll see when the Freedom of Information Act request comes out and different things. I mean, I think by the end of this, hopefully we'll know a lot of what actually happened as it comes out. But I think Pruitt dug his own grave and hopped right in. That's just what I think. You only win 3 games. You carry out blatant recruiting violations. You're going to get popped. This was not some mafia move by Tennessee to undermine Pruitt. He cheated and only won 3 games. I'm not surprised that he got fired either for the cheating or for only winning 3 games. It should have been for the 3 games. It just happened that Tennessee had these violations in hand and were able to fire him for cause. And I think they felt like they probably had to, because if you keep the guy around, the NCAA is going to rack you for sure. And a 3-win guy is not worth that. And so it's a nuanced situation, but that's my initial take on it at the moment.
Yeah, and that's why I asked it that way, because there have been instances elsewhere where a guy's winning, he gets nailed, and the school will stand by him until they just completely have to bail on him because it's just that egregious. But otherwise, Hugh Freeze got a lot of rope for a lot of months and got a lot of defense from the university until it just was so far out of hand. It was not able to be defended in any such way because he was winning games. All right, got Charlie Burris on the line to talk Tennessee football. So you think that they're off the hook for the $12 million? Because there is cause for fire here.
So during this press conference that they had at 3 p.m. today, the chancellor of the school, Dondi Plowman, she was asked straight up about that situation, and she said it's for cause. We're getting this guy out for nothing. Now, Pruitt can fight this. Obviously, he might. I doubt he will, just looking at the full situation. Because if these allegations are true, and Pruitt knows that, and he probably does, let's be honest, they're definitely putting Brian Niedermeyer, they're burning him at the stake for sure, who is the linebackers coach. But I think Pruitt knew a decent amount of what was going on. If you look at that and you say that he knew what was going on, I don't think Pruitt is going to try to fight this and let things come out in court. That would be, or just in depositions or however, Tennessee has powerful lawyers. Tennessee has plenty of resources and money to come after you and have their lawyers dig up, oh, yeah, you jaywalked on campus one day. Here's a video of it to explain yourself. They're going to dig up anything and everything. And they're not going to stop. And I don't think Pruitt wants all of that out there. I think what is probably going to end up with Pruitt is he's going to go hide in the NFL. He's going to go, hopefully he doesn't get so bad he has to drop back down to high school ball. I don't know what he'll do. But I think he'll go hide out, take his show cause or whatever the NCAA is going to slap him with, and try to bide his time. I don't think that he'll try to come after that money. I think for Tennessee to posture this hard and to have the chancellor of the school say, it's for cause, we're not paying this buyout flat out like she did, they must have some serious receipts. And so he could try to fight it. I doubt that he will, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Folks, smash the like button, share the videos on social media. Not everybody else knows that we're out here. So if you like the content, share the videos. And of course, subscribe here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So Phillip Fulmer, who is the guy when it comes to any ties at that level to Tennessee success all time, he's the one living guy that everybody points to. So he takes over as the AD 3 years ago during another uncomfortable coaching situation and coaching search. And to try to stabilize it, be the guy that everybody can look to as, okay, we feel better about the situation because Fulmer's in charge. Did he step away because he's part of the issue, or because he's like, okay, I've saved it before, I'm out, I don't want to deal with more mess, I'm out?
If you're asking me, full context, I'm pretty cynical on this whole situation, if you can't tell from what I've already said. I don't think that this was Phil's choice. Personally, I think they looked and they said, where were you, Phil? You were the AD, and you let your guy do this stuff apparently decently out in the open, and get caught, and you let it spiral out of control like it has, and now we're in this mess. And I think they looked at Phil and they said, we'll give you the respect to go out gracefully, but we're not going to let you not go out. I think they see that he probably should have never been the AD to begin with. And I'll completely own, I was behind the hire at the time, because they did give Phil an infrastructure there where they left administrators behind him that could help him out, even though he had no AD experience. They left like Reed Sigmund as his number 2 man. And Reed Sigmund was the number 2 man to John Curry, his predecessor. So like they left some infrastructure there to help him out. But I mean, you look around and if the AD is not Phillip Fulmer, that AD is getting booted straight to the curb without any kind of pleasantries like they had today. During this press conference, they had Phil out there and they said, thank you, Phil, for your time at Tennessee. You're a great asset to Tennessee and all. A regular AD is not getting any of that. A regular AD is getting fired. It's what's happening. And so they did him a courtesy. I think today it's what they did to him in 2008, admittedly, whether there's a lot of Tennessee fans that think he never should have been fired, and I'll leave that to everybody to debate. But it's what they did then. He, quote unquote, retired back then. He's retiring now. He didn't want to leave. He had just this year, in what was, in my opinion, a very ill-advised move, had renegotiated his contract to an extension. He was totally planning on being here for longer. And so I don't think that he would have happily walked out and said, whoops, that was my bad. He didn't, during this press conference, he had the opportunity to own up to the failure that was the Jeremy Pruitt hire. He didn't do it. And he doesn't want to do it. And I don't think he ever will. And so I love Phil and what he's represented for this university. Obviously the tons of wins he gave us on the football field. That's great. He failed as an AD, and he needs to get out of the way. And it just, it is what it is. Let's just move on. They're going to make a hire hopefully in the next couple of weeks if they can expedite it, and have a new AD, and we'll see where we can go from there.
We've got Charlie Burris on the line to talk Tennessee football. Phillip Fulmer having to step down, and Jeremy Pruitt, of course, fired amid losses and NCAA violations. So, Charlie, last question would be, I can't think of a program in the country that is stranger from the standpoint of trying to evaluate how good the job is. Like you could name any program in the country and I can give you an evaluation status of that's a top 5 job, that's a top 25 job, that's a top 50 job, whatever. Tennessee, there's such a contrast or dichotomy between what it's been for the last 12 or 13 years versus what the history and the tradition and the resources and the fan base and all that is on the positive side, that I don't know how to equate this job or evaluate it. So how good of a coach do you think they can get? And do you have any particular preferences?
I'm right there with you on that assessment. And I mean, I covered this team as a job for 5 years. And have been a lifelong fan. I don't know. I guess personally, I think that Tennessee's ADs have sold the school short on multiple occasions, where Tennessee had the power to go out and make a real nice hire, and they just didn't. I think that's happened multiple times over now. I think you could have gotten somebody better than Butch. You definitely could have gotten somebody better than Dooley. And Kiffin, hindsight 2020, everybody loves Kiffin again at UT. Here's the truth. In 2009, Gary Patterson wanted the job. Gary Patterson wanted the job. And the AD thought that Tennessee was too good for Gary Patterson. Okay, so there's been some things like that where Tennessee has screwed itself because of bad AD hires, because they just think that, oh, we're special, we're going to do it the Tennessee way or whatever. And I there's so much to unpack with that question. In terms of this situation, I think it's better than 2017. I'll say that the roster is, if they don't just hemorrhage a ton of players here in the next couple of weeks, and that's possible, we'll see. But if they don't hemorrhage a ton of players in the next couple of weeks, I think you probably have a better roster than 2017, marginally, but probably better. And you have a better situation because if you go for an up-and-coming coach, say a Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina, you have Kevin Steele on the line. I mean, that was obviously a strategic move. They brought Kevin Steele in and announced him as a defensive assistant. And everybody went, what? A defensive assistant? Turns out they knew they were going to fire Pruitt back then, and they were setting him up to be the interim. That's literally all that was. And so you have Kevin Steele, and I think you could say, obviously there's a theory out there that Kevin Steele is going to be the guy. Good Lord, I hope they don't do that, but I wouldn't put it past Tennessee. But saying that won't happen, let's just hope that doesn't happen. You set up like a Jamie Chadwell and you say, you're this really exciting offensive mind, have a ton of potential. We have Kevin Steele and Rodney Garner set up right here for you, two of the best recruiters in the SEC, a long time SEC guy who can probably help you out on your staff. And you kind of use them as a selling point and say, they weren't involved with the cheating, so they're not going anywhere. And they're here at your disposal if you want them. Use that as a selling point. You could bring in a guy like that. I don't know, like a Billy Napier. I personally, if Tennessee would just admit that they're shameless, just go hire Hugh Freeze. It's a total no-brainer. He would crawl here on broken glass and be Tennessee's coach. But Tennessee, again, as I mentioned earlier, Tennessee thinks they're special and that it's the Tennessee way. Just go hire the guy that will win. Go hire the guy that will win, and the guy that will win is Hugh Freeze. But they're not. I don't think they're going to do that. I think there's zero chance of that happening. But they're set up better than 2017. Does that mean they're going to go out and make the right hire? I don't know, and I don't know how attractive the job is. You're not going to get you're not going to get like a Matt Campbell. He has a sweet gig at Iowa State. Why would he come here to deal with this mess? you're not going to be able to go there. You have to strategically pick the right guy. And I think Tennessee could get the right guy. If they're smart about how they carry this out, they don't do anything stupid and, try to hire a guy that's going to cause the fans to riot, and then the riot causes the AD to get fired, and the AD that they hire in his place hires Jeremy Pruitt. As long as they don't do that, again, I think the correct hire can be made here.
Good stuff from Charlie Burris.
Yeah.
I had to flag you down, Charlie, when I saw the news. No question about that.
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure coming on here. I could go for hours. I have already gone for hours. I've been doing shows for the last 2 hours of my own. So I appreciate you having me on, Mark.